If you've been watching on social media, you know that you're probably familiar with the name George Lloyd, who was killed broad daylight by a cop, and that stuff is everywhere. And I know some people who, like myself, you're on social media a lot, considering the circumstances and considering the circumstances, and you see that those images, and sometimes that stuff can get in your spirit and it can mess you up. So I think that's the first part. I know some people are getting back to work. Some people are getting back to work and kind of being sped up, right? And that can kind of throw off your equilibrium a little bit. So I simply want to give you a story to hopefully inspire just wellness and the necessity to slow down and kind of process things a little bit. So real quick, so this story is called Walking with Wagons and Gems. Walking with Wagons and Gems. So there's two guys. There's a 60-year-old guy. There's a 60-year-old guy who moves like he's 30. And there's a 30-year-old guy who moves like he's 60. So we'll talk about the 30-year-old guy who moves like he's 60. Okay. Now, both of these dudes, as they go through life, they're pulling this wagon. Both of these guys are pulling a wagon, right? And every time they encounter a moment and they experience an emotion, a hunk of junk falls out of the sky into their wagon, right? So now let me back up real quick. We all know that the narrative of life is incline, plateau, decline. Go from being a little baby to somebody who is in their prime. You want to sustain that prime for as long as you can, and then we decline. Father Time is undefeated, right? So as we are pulling this wagon, as we pulling this wagon, and we are encountering moments, and these moments are connected to emotions, and these emotions are creating these huge hunks of junk to fall in our wagon. We're pulling this wagon. So as we're a young kid, sometimes it's easy to pull the wagon because you're young, you're strong, you're youthful, you got tons of energy. It's not a problem. And even when you get into your prime, it's not a problem. You know what I'm saying? You might be pulling this wagon and it's got a lot of hunks of junk in there because you've experienced a lot of moments and emotions, but you're in your prime. You're big, you're strong, you're fast, you hit hard. It's not a big deal. You can pull that wagon, but we know that once you get to a certain age and Father Time starts to kind of start showing up a little bit more, all of a sudden it can be incredibly difficult to pull that wagon. So when we talk about the 30-year-old, right, who moves like he's 60, the reason why he's moving like he's 60 is because he's got this wagon and it's got a whole bunch of junk in his wagon that he has failed to acknowledge. He's failed to explore what's in his wagon, right? And not only that, he's convinced himself, or she has convinced herself, that she's in a race, right? So this person who is 30, who moves like they're 60, has convinced themselves that they're in a race. And they keep they keep hearing these whispers out of nowhere that says, you better keep up in this race or else you're gonna get left behind. You better keep up in this race or you're gonna get left behind. And so because that person hears these whispers, they say to themselves, I don't have time to look in this wagon and deal with these hunks of junk. I don't have time to look in this wagon and deal with these emotions because I'm gonna get left behind. Now, there's the 60-year-old who moves like he's 30. What the 60-year-old learned at an early age is, I gotta address these hunks of junk. I gotta address these emotions. I gotta address these moments. So every time a hunk of junk would fall in their wagon, what they would do is they would stop because they realized a long time ago, I'm not in a race. Who am I competing with? Who am I competing with? What race? What finish line? Who's the highest form of competition? Is the competition of self. Are you beating yesterday's version of you? So if that's the case, then there's no need for me to look at all these other people. And even if there are some of those people walking by, like this 30-year-old who moves like he's 60, he's saying, what are you doing? You better catch up. You better keep up. You can't stop. But the 60-year-old is saying, bro, I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna catch up with y'all. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna catch up with y'all. But right now, I'm gonna see what's in this wagon. So what they do is they stop. They go into the wagon and they take out the hammer and the chisel. And what they do is they crack one of them hunks of junk and they destroy it. And what they find is a gem. And the gym represents knowledge. They're like, whoa, I got some knowledge today out of that moment. That emotion gave me some knowledge. Another hunk of junk. They find another one. They say, you know what? Let me see what's in this one. Hammer, chisel, ding, 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 pow. Wipe off the debris. Oh, I got wisdom. And see, they keep coming across these gems, and these gems represent knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and love. And so the reason why this 60-year-old is moving like he's 30 is because he got a wagon full of gems. He don't got a whole bunch of junk slowing him down. He got a whole bunch of knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and love. He realizes, I'm not in the race. Who is there to compete with, right? And here's the difference between the 30 and the 60-year-old. The 30-year-old gets tense and gets stressed out because they are convinced they are in some sort of race. And then to make it even worse, everybody's looking at the 30-year-old's wagon, and it's full of junk. And it looks weird. It looks offbeat. He looks stressed out. People looking at him like, man, you look bad. You look broken. So now he's dealing with everybody's perception of him, or she's dealing with everybody's perception of her. Stresses her out. So not only is he stressed out by the race, but he's stressed out by everybody else's perception. Meanwhile, the 60-year-old, everybody's amazed. Everybody's admiring his wagon. Why? He got knowledge, wisdom, understanding, and love. Everybody want to get closer to his wagon and see what's in his wagon. They want to learn from the wagon. They want to see what gems they can acquire, what gems they can learn from. They want the knowledge, the wisdom, understanding, and love. And so it's a tale about one person who recognizes that, number one, I'm not in the race, but number two, I have got to stop when necessary to deal with me. I went through something. That something brought forth or triggered an emotion. I got to figure out, where's this emotion coming from? And the reason why this is important, because throughout this pandemic, somebody lost their job. Somebody lost their job and got motivated. Somebody lost their job and got upset. Somebody lost their job and got depressed. 3 people lost their job, 3 different responses. So now we got to figure out, why did I respond the way that I did? Where did I pick that up from? Did I get that from my mother? Did I get that from my father? Did I get that from my surround? Like, how come 3 people lost their job? Why did one get motivated? Why did the other one get upset? And why did the other one get depressed? Where did that come from? And when we start to trace those emotions, we start to learn about where we come from and how our environment, how our parents, how our friends, how our circles, how they inspire our behavior. And then once we understand what those emotions are telling us about ourselves, now we see the areas in life where we can get stronger, better, faster, more explosive, quicker, so on and so forth. And so it's necessary for us to slow down, stop while everybody's moving on, and deal with our stuff, deal with the hunk of junk that just fell in our wagon. And so that's all I'm saying. As we start getting back to the work, and life speeds up, as we start dealing with a whole bunch of other people who aren't as conscious, aren't aware, as we start dealing with the images that we see on television, and we start getting triggered, and we start feeling the kind of way, we start getting upset, maybe we feel guilty, or maybe we feel angry, it's necessary that we take some time, figure out what those emotions are telling us about ourselves, so that we can be a symbol of wellness and vitality, not only to our families, but hopefully to the kids that we're coaching. And if we can coach ourselves through that process, we can hopefully coach somebody else through a similar process that might not be as aware of how to process their moments and emotions. So with that being said, I'm done, man. I hope that makes sense. Wagons with gems. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that you all are taking some time to figure out what your emotions are telling you about yourself, so that you can, again, be strong, be well, and be a symbol of vitality. So that's it, man.